The motel lobby light is dim tonight, casting long shadows across the check-in desk, a place for late arrivals, and for conversations that drift far beyond the ordinary. Tonight, we welcome a guest who has made it his life's work to ask the questions that most people never dare to. Georg Bosh, from Ubiquity University and the State of the World Forum. Two homes for exploring consciousness, its connection to non-human intelligence, and the psychic currents that run just beneath the surface of our reality. Georg is someone I'm proud to call a friend, open-minded, deeply capable, and always willing to step into the hardest conversations, the ones that test the limits of language itself. He's the kind of person you'd want standing beside you when the big story finally breaks, a voice of reason and reflection amid the noise. This talk could have stretched on for hours more, if only the clocks weren't so insistent. But even in the time we had, the ground we covered was vast, and perhaps just the beginning. So, pull up a chair, let the day unfold, and join me for this late checkout at the Dreamland Motel with Georg Bosh. Georg, thank you very much for joining me at the Dreamland Motel.
Thank you, Xander.
It's been a little while since we've spoken.
Right, when was it? I think it was just before the European UAP summit in June, I believe.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. Why do you need a late checkout?
Probably because I just stayed too long at the buffet, or you can eat breakfast.
Oh, you need to be careful, the motel buffet.
Well, I hope it's a really good motel,
Well, I'll let the audience decide that. For those that don't know who you are, why don't you give yourself a bit of an overview? What were you doing before Ubiquity University? What is Ubiquity University? And what made you want to start working with them?
Thank you, Xander. Well, I originally studied documentary filmmaking in new media, so I was always interested in storytelling and especially how technology can shape that. And I was always a sci-fi buff, but I never really made the connection that this sci-fi stuff is actually a reality that's just not distributed equally, so to speak. This is William Gibson quote, right? So I was always looking for, where is the future happening? And I came across integral theory, this Ken Wilber, who is a fantastic philosopher who really put together insights from the West and the East. And so that's how I found Ubiquity University, because it's one of the few universities where people really come together from different fields of expertise, like cross silos, like neuroscience and wisdom studies and and spirituality, and SDGs, and it was all happening there. And so I've been working for Ubiquity University for almost 10 years now.
10 years.
Yeah, 2017. And this entire time we didn't really have anything to do with the UAP disclosure subject. Mm-hmm. It was only in 2023 that kind of opened up for us.
Has it become like a main avenue of inquiry now for the university? But because I've seen there's still regular sort of consciousness exploration events and things like that don't specifically mention UAP, but clearly, at least in 2025, there's a huge overlap now.
Yeah, exactly. This overlap is very exciting for us. And in fact, we do have a school of science and consciousness, and in that we offer the ET studies, and we also offer a science of consciousness degree, where people really look into the kind of the root research on the psi phenomena with a peer lab in Princeton and all that good stuff that really kind of is at the at the beginning of the psi phenomena that now is kind of merging with the UAP field. And that's, I think, is the biggest news this year, actually. That if I would look back at this year and say, what is new in the UFO conversation? I would say the one thing that's actually new is that we have this merging of this remote viewing psi world with the UAP disclosure world. And we could go into that, why I think that's happening and what's new about it.
Before we do, for sure, I do want to get into that. But was there a moment, presumably, you've been sort of connecting that dot for a little bit longer than perhaps everybody else has. Was there a moment for you when you I'm sure you were working for Ubiquity at the time, when you were starting to think, okay, there's a connection here between what people are saying they're experiencing in regards to non-human intelligence and all of the more Eastern traditions of consciousness exploration and things?
To be honest, the full extent of this connection really became clear to me this year. Before that, I was a little bit aware of it. But how deep these programs have been running in exploring remote viewing and how that has been used also as a military asset, and how much we're kind of already in a world where consciousness influences tech, that was a realization that kind of dawned on me this year. So I don't want to pretend that I kind of have known about this for quite a while. It's really quite astonishing the more you learn about it. I mean, just listen to Hal Puthoff on Joe Rogan. And that would have been unimaginable a few years ago.
So we had obviously the confirmation that Project Stargate existed, and that's what you're alluding to. Like, the government has literally invested millions into this, and perhaps more behind closed doors. You have connections with very popular remote viewers that also offer classes at Ubiquity and things like that. But you don't have to go into specifics, but is there some level of inside knowledge as to the government's continued interest in this field? Or, as far as you're aware, has that interest from the government just completely stopped?
I think there's no reason to believe that it stopped. I even think Hal Puthoff indicated that there's no stopping here, that remains a valuable source of information. And if we are to believe Jake Barber and his testimony, then there is such a thing as a psionic asset in this world of UAP reconnaissance or interfacing. And the Skywatcher team is putting that on their website, and they're a funded UAP intelligence startup. And the other startup of David Hopper, Eldeon, that's starting now. His startup is also integrating these psi sensors, and that before would have been really difficult. But there are now these random number generators that work on a quantum level that are much cheaper now than they were a few years ago. And so you can now actually build this this psi sensing tech in a much cheaper way, which is really interesting.
We had Anna Paulina Luna on Joe Rogan this week as well, and she strikes me as someone who definitely has an insane interest in this topic, but that perhaps her, let's call it, level of scientific inquiry is a little bit lacking. Obviously, she's a politician. It's not her job to be the scientist, but I don't know whether she's even consulting the right kind of people. So I personally think there's a bit of a danger growing there if, she's throwing around words like interdimensional beings or psionics and things like that without fully understanding. As a representative of the American government, it's really her job to investigate the claims that she's making, because really anything she says really does have real world consequences. So do you think that the work that Ubiquity University is doing could play a role in that education at some point in the future, or has it already?
Whoa, and that's a fantastic question. It's a really complex one. So I just saw on X, Eric Weinstein, this important person in the intellectual dark web, and this, I would say, multi-talented, I would say, genius who has his own theory of everything, which he commented on her post, on her snippet from Rogan.
Oh, really?
That they should please let the scientists in on this conversation. So I think at this point, anything that stirs the hornet's nest and adds to the cognitive dissonance in the intellectual elite is good.
Yeah.
If you would think Eric Weinstein did not have this level of UAP conversation on his radar a few years ago, he kind of went from, oh my God, this is all a psyop, to there's something there. He still doesn't believe there's NHI from what I understand, but he really believes that the mainstream world is being conned in a very profound way. And this interdimensional talk is not new. It's David Grush had the same problem during his hearing, during the Russ Coulthard conversation.
It's that I struggle with words like interdimensional because it makes sense in terms of movies. I can understand, something coming through a portal and it looks cool and everything like that. But as far as I'm aware, that's not how interdimensional would make any sort of scientific sense.
Right. I mean, the problem I have with interdimensional talk is, before we get into that, why don't we talk about anti-gravitic propulsion, the good old-fashioned stuff from the 50s, Townsend Brown, Jesse Michaels did great exposés on that. So there is definitely something more adjacent to our known physics that shows some phenomena that we should really pay attention to and start disclosing before we go into, Star Trek tech blah blah that just most people check out. So there is a sense, I think, and that's what you're alluding to, that we might just help the secrecy by talking interdimensional angels and not really focus on the nuts and bolts stuff that is being withheld.
Definitely needs to be sort of baby steps with the more esoteric stuff that there's even less of a scientific basis for than what's publicly known about anti-gravity, for example. I've seen enough evidence at this point to make the inference that anti-gravity technology probably exists in some way, and I think Eric Weinstein actually does allude to that as well. He thinks there's whole areas of science that really, if you start going down that road, you get funneled into like this sort of quarantine paddock where if you are allowed to continue that kind of line of inquiry, then you're very much kept behind closed doors and NDAs and things. And if you're funneled away from that avenue, then you're kind of pushed into the unprovables like string theory and
exactly
other stuff we'll never be able to test.
Yeah, he does a great way. He has some wonderful talks on YouTube where he talks about this chopped off tech tree, like that certain avenues of investigation just always go dark. And we don't know if they go dark because they're in secret programs or because there's no results. But you're definitely right. From the tiny results that are public that show Townsend Brown's basic, anomalies being valid, that these anomalies do exist, one really does wonder, why isn't there a huge investigation in that?
Am I right in saying you've actually taken part in some of the courses at Ubiquity related to remote viewing? Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, I organized them, and I've taken part as much as I could in the initial courses. I'm not an expert, but I have a sense of how teaching this is done, especially by Brody Jaworski.
When you first started that course, what position were you in? Because it's sort of touted as something that can be taught to anybody. And I'm sitting here wondering, well, why haven't I at least tried? And you're one of those people that has actually tried.
Well, Birdie has a free 3-hour kind of beginners session on her YouTube channel where she goes through the basic ways of doing this for free. And that's a great starting point for everybody. We can link this.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll put the link in the description.
But I think this understanding that everybody has the innate ability to develop these capabilities, that's a new thing. Before we always thought about, Ingo Swann, these special people who can do it. But we can all learn the piano to some extent. And maybe we're not concert by pianists, all of us, but we have the basic capabilities of doing it.
I kind of maybe liken it to the ability to meditate. Anybody can sit there and at least, probably for the first at least few months, unless you're very lucky, nothing will happen. But if you're consistent with it, then there are some experiences you can have with meditation that I've personally found you cannot get anywhere else. And I find that difficult to explain. And I imagine science probably still has a bit of a difficulty explaining it because it requires you to just take part and to just give it a go yourself. And I find meditation extremely rewarding, but right now I'm not meditating. And I often ask myself why, and I think maybe there's something within us that's sort of trying to keep you in the illusion of everydayness. And maybe the first step to learning remote viewing is very similar. It's kind of, well, the brain is used to one thing, and getting it into a new routine with new experiences is just not in the brain's interest. So was there an initial barrier for you when you first started learning about that stuff where you just, like maybe for the first month or two, you just thought this was going nowhere, and then all of a sudden something changes?
Well, I can really relate to what you're saying, especially with the things you said about meditation. So I had a similar experience where at the beginning, like 10 years ago, I really was into meditation, and I had some wonderful experiences doing it where you kind of question the idea of what the experience is purely subjective, or if it really points towards, something greater, what in the wisdom traditions they call ground of being. But then there is this roadblock, and this is well known throughout human wisdom traditions, dark night of the soul, there are many names for it, where, of course, your subjective kind of ego structure is being stretched to uncomfortable places. If these peak experiences are to be integrated into your kind of day-to-day mode of being, then your mode of being needs to change at some point. Otherwise, the dissonance is just becoming too big.
That's the thing.
So I think that's what you're talking about with these exercises stretch your sense of self, and by that they're of course dangerous to your ego, to society at large, and to your day-to-day function in a capitalist society.
That's it, exactly right. It's the day-to-day function. I have a young daughter, I have a job, I have many responsibilities that all require me to be present and engaging in the problem at hand. Whereas arguably meditation can lead to the experience of now more than anything else. But to get there, it requires you to sit still and not engage with the rest of the world.
Right. It's a bit like, would you want Eckhart Tolle to land the 747 you're traveling in?
Yeah. It doesn't jive with how society is currently set up. Most of us don't have an hour every morning to sit and think about existence. Like we get up at 6 a.m. We need to go to the gym, we need to have breakfast, and we need to then go to work for 8 hours.
Well, if you go to the gym, you're lucky already.
Well, exactly, yeah. And at the end of the 8-hour work day, I find there's no room left for self-inquiry. I am kind of done by the end of the day.
And one wonders if this really was this bad in earlier epochs of civilization. It's another conversation to pursue, but just to go back to your initial conversation about remote viewing, and yes, I was very skeptical about it. I had no background in it, and I took the initiatory classes, and what really kind of won me over wasn't necessarily the precision of my own attempts to remote view these targets. You know, there are these blind targets where you have numbers, and then you jot down your sensations about what you see.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it can be visual, it can be conceptual, it can be emotional. There are many different types of remote viewers, from what I understand, learn from Birdie, and understanding what type you are is already a big revelation for you. And what really won me over was the other people in the live class in Zoom kind of putting down their hits or their descriptions of what they were sensing before the target was revealed. And then we had stuff like curvy, exciting, screaming, fun, scary. And then what was revealed was, for example, the image of a roller coaster.
Right.
And stuff like this, where just the amount of people not being off, like where the data points are kind of in the proximity of the real thing, that was really quite astounding. And so that like repeated 10 times makes you really wonder. It's more than random.
It's the repetition that really starts to lend itself towards the scientific method, at least. I think science would probably, at least initially, probably label something like that as a bit of what we call a Barnum statement. So you have all of these people sort of circling around what seems to be the result. It's a bit like a horoscope when it will tell you generics about...
In retrospect, it makes so much sense.
Yeah. And a horoscope will tell you things about yourself that seem unique, but it's just written in a way that everybody generally thinks that they are a bit of a deep thinker, or that they're perhaps misunderstood. That's like a bit of a Barnum statement, is like everybody generally thinks that they're a bit misunderstood or a bit...
But Xander, now you sound like a skeptic.
No.
What about just the overwhelming evidence of telepathy tape, autist kids being able to kind of read the numbers on the other side of the room? What about the people at the Psy Games, that happened in August? There were just numerous demonstrations of stuff that's just beyond any coincidence of mind sight and so on. And just if you connect the dots on this stuff, it's quite overwhelming that it's real.
Mm-hmm. I do definitely agree. I'm not, for the record, I'm not a skeptic on this stuff. I'm trying to, in an effort to sort of temper my excitement slightly, because I think it just makes sense to. I still have to operate in the world as a regular human being. I'm trying to make more of an effort to rationally analyze what's going on, but I think what you're alluding to, and something that I agree with, is that you're describing these processes to somebody who hasn't experienced it. And I think because the vast majority of people haven't experienced it, the experience just doesn't come across. It's like if I could describe to you these moments that I'm sure you've had in meditation, where you really feel like you're experiencing something that you've never experienced anywhere else and haven't since. I've had those experiences, but I can't describe them. I can use words that we've been trained to use, but they don't quite cut it. And I think it's maybe the same with these remote viewing experiences and possibly psychic phenomenon in general, is that the experience itself is something that just needs to take place rather than the data that is collected as a result. It's good that you're doing repeatable things because that can form data overall, but ultimately I'm probably of the opinion that so far you just need to dive in and do it.
I agree totally. And there is this, I think in ufology, I hear that once the people who are researching these sightings become experiencer themselves, they kind of have the issue of being described as too involved and not trustworthy anymore.
Yeah.
Right. So there is this inherent contradiction between, are you just going to study the African tribe and their kind of ritual bongo drum playing, or are you going to participate in the drum circle and then describe that from your first person experience? And if you do that, are you still the scientific researcher and bystander who objectively describes the psychedelic experience of participating in the drum circle?
Yeah, I get that. How do you stay impartial when you really experience that?
So, but that's really like what we're trying to do here: translate between the worlds and find the terms and the concepts that can be bridges.
I think that's going to be more important as time goes on, and the more that we find out about this whole psionics thing, I think that's going to be more and more important for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it feels a bit like, do you want to open the remote viewing floodgates on yourself? And that's something that you kind of described before. And I think it's a very real concern. And it's not for everybody, I believe, to fully open yourself up to this. And it comes with new responsibilities.
Do you consider yourself a remote viewer at this point?
Oh, no way. I'm not at all. There are many people in the remote viewing world that say you do need mental hygiene, psychic hygiene, and be careful what you do. And there's this hitchhiker effect. There's this other camp that says, this is all a psyop, it doesn't exist, it never happened to me.
Yeah.
And so what we're kind of left with is this pick your own adventure situation where, depending on kind of what your intentions or your kind of subconscious motivations or fears are, different worlds are presented to you. Almost feels like pick your simulation.
Yeah,
but this is what I can gather from the field, not from personal experience, but just that there's really a divided opinion on this aspect of, can this stuff follow you home or not?
And it seems to be fracturing the ufology community in general at this point. We talked about it briefly before we started this conversation. I mean, everyone is sort of dividing their opinion on people like Lou Elizondo. Stephen Greer has been dividing opinion for the last, basically since before I was born. Do you believe the two sides forming in ufology will be able to come back to somewhere in the middle that makes most sense for everyone? Or do you think this fracture that seems to be happening is going to basically form into two camps that exist?
Well, that's an excellent question. I think it all boils down to this question of sovereignty as a multidimensional human being, right? And in how much, how we think of ourselves as participants in the cosmos. And, at Ubiquity, we really tried to explore exactly this question because it was so, such a big and complicated question that always came up during the courses. Is this safe? Should we do this? Isn't this a threat? Is this not a threat? This is kind of one of the controlling ideas, like understanding from what we know about all these NHI incursions, is this a threat or is this a welcome or is this a test? These are the big questions that are being discussed right now, and on a nuts and bolts level and on the psychic level. And we try to, in the wake of these Jake Barber's testimony, go to the bottom of this with these two psionic summits people can watch on YouTube. And we had an all-star cast. Richard Dolan, Birdie was there, Jake Barber was there with a video and different experiencers. And I think what it kind of boiled down to after 6 hours of conversation is that it really depends on your approach, on your intention to it, right? If you say, as a psychic individual in a multidimensional world, my intention is to connect to beings who are heart-centered, advanced civilizations that have the highest good for everybody in mind. If you take that leap, then with overwhelming, the overwhelming response will be that you have a positive experience doing this. And if you're not so sure about it, and if you hold some fears, maybe even subconscious fears about it, then maybe you're not going to have such a positive experience. But like with the trips in LSD, right? I mean, we know this phenomenon. Bad trip, good trip.
Yeah.
Trip sitters.
I often wonder whether the bad trips or the bad experiences are effectively you're not ready, but not necessarily experiencing the reality that people like Birdie says exist, where it's very much a welcoming place, but if you aren't ready for it, your fight and flight sort of response can take effect, and your brain can start playing tricks on you, interpret things as far more scary than they should be. So I think the question there could be, what do you think it would be dangerous for everybody on the planet to be able to do this right now? Do you think we're ready?
Man, it's a bit like asking, is it dangerous for people in a tribe to participate in a ritual where they have a shared altered state experience? As long as there's a shaman and there's a common intention, I think it's a safe thing to do. If it's has a place in the culture of the civilization that is being respected and integrated. The problem is we don't have any integration to this. We don't have any culture. We're just at the beginning of developing psychedelic cultures in some pockets of culture, where psychedelics are finally being understood as psychologically helpful in certain cases.
Yep.
And we also have partnerships at Ubiquity where people can do degrees on that. And so I think this is something I failed to mention, that this entire world of altered state experience is not coming out of nowhere. I mean, this has been part of human civilization since a long time, and there were the star people and the indigenous tribes and civilizations have always been there. And it's just now that Western civilization is trying to get around finally as the last.
Yeah, we separated science and spirituality a long time ago, and I've heard sort of things on the grapevine that suggest that separation might not have been the wisest idea. So I've had people tell me that Russia, for example, are far more ahead in this field simply because they never made that hard cut between science and mysticism. That if you needed funding to explore, if you're in a university in Russia and you need funding to explore this phenomenon, cool, if your intentions are sound, then they will fund it. Whereas in the US, getting funding at a mainstream university for something like this it can be career ending.
Yeah, I think that's about to change, but you're right, the scientism is a huge issue. And I love this quote by Whitley Strieber. I think he said, there's no such thing as a paranormal. There's only parts of the natural world that we haven't understood yet. And this concept of the paranormal itself, I mean, that's a really weird concept to have. That alone is saying that there's something about your experience that you're kind of suppressing and saying, oh, this is not real. I mean, how could there be such a thing as paranormal that is real or supernatural? It's already a split.
Yeah, it doesn't. It's only magic until we understand it. We drop a phone back 100 years in the past, and everybody would look at it like it's just pure magic. I think Stephen Greer calls it weird science and frickin' magic.
Exactly. Yeah, and I think that's the big hope I have for this psi conversation, this psi culture integrating with the psychedelic culture and the UAP world. If it's DMT entities or little gray beings, that we just get much more comfortable with the idea that there's intelligence out there that's not our own on all levels, multidimensional.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that what we're now calling non-human intelligence is exclusively one thing or several things? Maybe several things all exploiting technology related to what we could, I guess, call hidden dimensions. Do you think they're all coming from the same source?
I think that we as human beings ourselves are multidimensional beings, and that we are much bigger than just this bodily incarnation right now. And so I don't think that we're kind of set apart from these multidimensional NHI beings, ETs. Maybe they're more aware of their multidimensional nature. But, if there is also some rumors that there are ascended masters in human history that people continue to be in contact with, even though they've died thousands of years ago, and they have some kind of multidimensional timeless presence. And that's a shared experience of just millions of people on the planet.
Especially with psychedelics, the whole...
No, but I'm just speaking just in the wisdom traditions of Buddhism, Hinduism, some Christian mysticism, of course. And that's not a foreign concept to the human experience, that there's multidimensionality and experience of other realms.
It kind of links to maybe how time is experienced, because, as I said, with psychedelics, time can really be messed with, and it's the same in the Eastern traditions. Perhaps it's that dimension of time that's really sort of, that's the anchor that we have to this kind of experience that we have in everyday life. But once that sort of the essence of time starts to disappear, which you can definitely experience naturally and through psychedelics, that's perhaps something worth exploring, I think, in the future. And it starts to raise all sorts of questions about how non-human intelligence would experience something without time and still be able to function as a being in a universe that seems to experience time.
Well, are you familiar with the work of Whitley Strieber and his accounts of these multi-decade contact experience with the Grey? I mean, what he is reporting is that this species that he is connected to doesn't experience time like we do, and they want to commune with humans because it's such a absolutely unique and from what I understand, powerful experience for them to be confined to this point in view in time, where they don't know what's going to happen, like the excitement of being in this flow of time where everything is new, and so they come to us for that, from what I understand.
Alan Watts talked about that a lot. He's talked about this sort of wider consciousness sort of manifests humans as a way of sort of playing hide and seek with itself. It's a way of getting away from the truth so that you can have the pleasure of finding it again. I think that's a Hindu tradition as well. Let's talk about what's happening in Frankfurt next week. Talk us through that.
Well, thank you. Well, there is a German UAP NHI conference organized by Alien.de. It's happened several times before, and it's on August 23rd in Frankfurt am Main, the big city, and I'll be speaking there on European UAP disclosure, kind of the learnings that I had from doing this European virtual conference in June that we talked about a bit. And also, I'll be touching on what we talked about today, right? How this psi integration in the UFO conversation is what I feel is really new this year. And I wonder if we look back in time, we had 2023, we had the garage revelation and the push for legislation. 2024 was this period of normalization of, what UAPs are, Soul Foundation, UAP Disclosure Fund, all these initiatives. And I think 25 will go down in history so far. Who knows what's coming? But this psi conversation is definitely something that's new and there to stay. So that's what I'll be exploring. And also I'll work on explaining why I feel Europe is lagging behind so much in this NHI conversation and what we could do to push the envelope here in Europe.
Definitely a lot of work that needs to take place in Europe, in the UK. I have plenty of friends who are interested, but they won't talk about it in a public forum at all, whereas America seems to be wide open at this point. You can basically say whatever you want, and there's somebody.
It's
will
really
listen.
hard for us, from the other side of the pond, to understand like what the conversation actually is like in America, because I don't know. If I go just to a random diner and talk to the waitress about it, ETs, if that's kind of a pop culture thing, or if it's like a really politically relevant topic. It's hard to understand what America is so vast, but let's just say there is a elite that's waking up to it from different sectors who are dedicated to be first movers on the subject matter. I mean, I think that's something we can agree on. And this elite is not doing it in public in Europe, which maybe is strategic, but on the other hand, they're not shaping the conversation if they are moving in secret in Europe on this. So
it seems as well the stuff that is getting mainstream attention, at least in the UK and arguably in the US as well, we've had the whole 3i Atlas story going on the last few weeks.
Same here in Germany. That one came through for whatever reason, yeah.
I mean, what do you think about 3i Atlas? Do you really think there's anything there that's worth paying attention to? Because I'm on the assumption it's just a comet, and I don't understand why we're labeling it as a threat or even possibly alien.
It's a bit, if you're not a subject matter expert, it's like some geneticists with really high credentials say COVID is obviously naturally mutated, and others are absolutely convinced that this is obviously engineered. As a normal person who doesn't have a triple PhD in genetics, I can only pick one side, but I can't really have an educated opinion. I can research the thing, but how would I really know? It's outside of my expertise. And the same thing here. We have Harvard astronomer Avi Loeb pointing towards some indications, regarding how this thing is entering our solar system and other things, that there's some likelihood that this is some engineered.
He gave it a 40% chance this week.
Yeah. And now there are other also equally believable astronomers who say it's just a normal comet. And so what can we do? We can just see the evidence and the spin of it. And I do find it weird that this Avi Loeb thing got so much attention compared to the hearing, for example, in Congress with Lou Elizondo and the other guys, which was not mentioned at all. And I think it was a bigger news item to have 5 people sworn under oath giving testimony to a multi-decade cover-up with their credentials is a much bigger news item than one paper by Avi Loeb saying there is a chance that this is not a natural object. And so it makes you wonder if there's some kind of spin, or I don't like the word psyop, but if you Google this 3 Atlas name and you look at all the news items all over the world,
it's just threat,
papers,
alien.
they just mention it, just put it out there. It seems to me like they're trying to now we're going into the deep conspiracy world, right? The deep state. Somebody somewhere is trying to understand what the reaction is to this news item.
It's either a plot to change public perception on specific things for whatever reason. That's the conspiracy element, or it's the idea that this guy's calling it a threat. Somebody's going to click on the word threat and asteroid. We've all seen Deep Impact and Armageddon, and that's going to get people's attention.
Or if we're not wanting to go down the conspiracy road, it could also be just the zeitgeist of people in many, many media outlets feeling that this way of talking about a comet somewhere is a more acceptable manner of start talking about, space things that are kind of tangible, and they can put it out without going down or being coined kind of a conspiracy amplifier newspaper. Because many people, when they talk about these hearings, they still say, this is conspiracy theory.
Yeah.
So there is a kind of a ready-made stamp on that, right? That you're not doing good journalism, but quoting a Harvard astronomer doesn't do any harm. But how is it going to evolve? I mean, it's really exciting. We know late October we will know if the thing shows up behind the sun or if it kind of vanishes. Or
what do you hope will be the outcome of the hearing in September?
Oh man, I think what would be really powerful if the atomic connection gets played. If we have the witnesses from the incursions over atomic missile silos go forward on record, under testimony, that would really be hard to ignore for the public and really move the needle, I think.
Especially with the whole, we just discussed, threat seems to get clicks. And if you're talking about things that we don't know floating over nuclear sites, then you could very reasonably label that as a threat. So
yeah, you could, or you could say they're warning us, or they're telling us not to play with matches. There are also other sources that say that we were saved from nuclear annihilation several times by whatever these NHI are or what they're doing. So there are as many perspectives on this as there are possibilities to spin it.
That's just reminded me of one thing that Greer said this week. He said that there was a previous asteroid/comet intercepted by us or aliens, or perhaps both, and that it was pushed out the way and saved us. Have you heard of this idea?
Yeah, he mentioned that a few months ago. Yeah. I mean, the stories are running wild. People love it.
I mean, I love
this thing. Just people love it. Some people say it's actually the secret space program, and it's some kind of cloaked ship that's human, and the secret space program is now coming back, and they will do the disclosure, saying, yeah, we're already in space. Hello, thank you. And the other people say it's some kind of Anunnaki return and alien invasion. Others say it's a deep state cabal attack.
There's your next hour of conversation right there.
And so it's really helping the imagination. A bit like during COVID, right? And everybody had their own version of what was going on during COVID. Time will tell, I suppose.
Time will tell. Until then, we've got ubiquityuniversity.org to help guide us through this minefield, or should we call it mind field? I don't know.
Both. Yeah. Exactly.
Anything else you wanna tell the audience before we say goodbye?
Well, I think you should all check out the State of the World Forum. It's State of the World, one word, .forum. It's this multi-day conference Ubiquity and friends are organizing under the leadership of Jim Garrison in December this year in DC. And it will be about many of the things we've discussed today, how we can find a new mainstream narrative that's more inclusive of different perspectives on reality, different intelligences that we have to wrestle with as human beings right now, AI, NHI, nature, intelligence, human intelligence. And you can join that virtually or in person in DC. And we have many, many top-tier UAP speakers and indigenous people coming. It will be a real party. Davos meets Burning Man meets UFO conference, to say the least.
That's the kind of event I need.
So you should go there, Xander.
All right, Georg, thank you very much. And
thank you so much.
We'll speak again soon. We'll have you back on the night shift very soon.
Thank you so much.
All right.